Well, Doug, you recently reviewed The End of the World is Just the Beginning by Peter Zeihan. The subtitle of that book is Mapping the Collapse of Globalization. You said that Christians should go out buy the book. Why do you think that? Why should people read this book?
I think Christians should buy the book, but especially Christians who have family living overseas or churches that have missionaries they support overseas, and depending on where overseas they are. Because Zeihan's thesis is basically that globalization is coming to an end. And if he is correct about everything, then a lot of the world is going to go through a catastrophic time. If he's partially right, then it's going to be a tumultuous time. But it'd be good for us to be preparing regardless. So mission boards, denominations that send missionaries, denominations that have churches overseas, people who've emigrated to the United States who still have family in South Africa or family in Eastern Europe or family in Brazil. This book is a book that would be really good to read.
And he has a thesis about why globalization happened in the first place.
Yes.
And then why it's collapsing.
Correct. Globalization, it usually takes people about 10 minutes to get accustomed to a new state of affairs and to take it for granted. Okay? The last 70 years, from the end of World War II down to the present, has been the most materially blessed period in human history, recorded human history. More people have been lifted out of poverty. More people have been fed. More people. It's just been a mini golden age, and I'm only talking about material prosperity. It's not been the millennium, but it has been, materially speaking, a better than anything that went before. Right? P.J. O'Rourke was once asked. He was once said, "I could prove progress to you with one word." He said, well, it's dentistry.
It's a great line. Yeah.
All right. So our assumption is, well, man is coming of age. It's an evolutionary progress. We climbed down out of the trees and we built civilizations, and now we're just at the next stage of our evolutionary development, like we're entering the age of Aquarius or something. Zeihan's thesis is that this globalization was not a function of man coming of age or getting to a requisite population size. He says it was the consequence of the Bretton Woods Agreement near the end of World War II, where because we got in the war late, because World War II was not fought in America, because we got into the war in 41 instead of 39, and because we had the biggest, most robust economy, after the war, we had a gargantuan navy, and everybody else's navies and armies were destroyed. Other countries' economies were flattened. Ours wasn't flattened, and we had a huge military. And we were in a position to summon everyone and say, welcome to the American Empire. Here's what your tariffs are going to be. And that's what other empires had done before us. But we didn't do that. We did something really novel and striking. And that was we wanted to contain the Soviet threat. And so we invited other nations to join our trade order. Okay, and the U.S. Navy was going to be used to guarantee shipping from anywhere to anywhere. Okay, so basically, you've heard complaints, many complaints about the America being the world's policeman, but they're talking about going into countries and trying to build a nation or save a democracy or overthrow a democracy or whatever.
Whatever the need at
good
the moment is. Yeah.
Good cop, bad cop, but the world's policeman. What America actually was the world's Coast Guard. Okay, that's where everything was invested. And what that did was basically eradicated piracy, eradicated state piracy, and eradicated, for the most part, regional wars. Okay, so we guaranteed shipping from anywhere to anywhere, and what that did was made global supply chains possible, particularly oil. Okay, the issue is not oil in the Middle East. The issue is getting oil from the Middle East and from the Soviet Union and Russia now, and from other places to where it's needed. Well, super tankers are not a possibility in the old order before this imposed peace on the high seas enforced by the U.S. Navy. Super tankers were not a possibility. Just not a possibility. His thesis is that after 70 years of this, Americans, both Republican and Democrat, have gotten tired of it. Okay, gotten sick of it, and we're about to retrench. We're about to pull back. On the right, that retrenchment sentiment is the America First sentiment. On the left is the no blood for oil, stay out of foreign wars. But everybody wants to pull back. And one of his first book, The Accidental Superpower, shows that geographically, in terms of resources, in terms of quality of soil, arable land, navigable waterways, America hit the geographic Powerball jackpot. All right, we're a continent-sized island, basically, a huge ocean to the east and a huge ocean to the west. Canada is, not a significant geopolitical threat, and Mexico is not either, because of the border and mountains and everything. So basically, we're really secure. We have, I think it's something like America has 17,000 miles of navigable rivers, and the rest of the world combined has 15,000. So we have over 50% of the navigable waterways in the world. The difference that makes is shipping goods by water is 12 times cheaper than shipping it by rail or by truck right. So we would have to work, America would have had to work really, really hard to not be wealthy, right? But there's the can-do American spirit.
Don't tell us what we can't do.
Don't tell us that we can't do it. I mean, and this is something I think Zeihan neglects, because Venezuela hit their own little jackpot. They were a well-to-do country, and on top of all sorts of resources, and they wrecked it all. So envy and socialism and leftist thinking wrecked everything. And we've got American states and major municipal areas that are governed by the same lunacy that wrecked Venezuela. So we and that's something I think he leaves out. He's close to a geographical determinist, right? The geography determines everything. I think it determines an awful lot, but a God can still strike a people with madness, so what he's arguing is that when globalization ends and the world devolves into chaos, America is going to retreat and become its own little gated community, so that we can grow our own food. Because of the shale revolution, we can supply our own energy. We are self-sufficient, so we can retrench and be okay. The rest of the world is going to have a hard time of it. He argues compellingly that certain nations are going to cease to exist. China is one of them. Russia is one of them. He even argues that Germany is one of them. He argues that other nations will become regional hegemons. France for Europe. He thinks UK will be a part of the Anglosphere, part of the American orbit. Turkey in the Mediterranean will become a hegemon, Argentina and South America, and so on.
And those hegemonies, those hegemons, will be determined by what? Why are those going to remain powerful?
Because of their natural resources, their access to oil, their access, things like that. He also, not only is he a geographical determinist, but he knows the geography of the world very, very well. So when he talks about, you would think, why Argentina? Why not Brazil? Well, because Brazil's got an escarpment that runs the whole Atlantic coast. It's really hard to get in and out of Brazil in a way that's not hard to get in and out of Buenos Aires.
So, and so you said that this would be beneficial for Christians who have family living elsewhere, are involved in any kind of international work.
Right.
What kind of benefit will those Christians get out of that picture of the future, knowing sort of the direction of things?
They will have lead time for preparation. If they find his arguments compelling, and I think there's a lot of weight to them, you don't have to find them all the way compelling. You just need to say, oh, there's something here. Zeihan predicted years ago, he predicted the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the reasons for it, and had it all dialed in. He's not a prophet. He's not Jeremiah or Isaiah. He predicted that the Russians would take Kiev in a matter of days, which they didn't. So the Ukrainians put up a much stiffer resistance than he predicted. But Zeihan predicted, so basically the Russia-Ukraine war is the first in a long series of wars, civil wars and wars of aggression, wars of we need that oil, that sort of thing.
And you said that you hinted at this, but could you talk a little bit more about if someone were to just swallow the whole book, Peter Zeihan, the end of the world is just the beginning, that thesis, what dangers would that person be susceptible to? As you mentioned, geographical determinism.
Yeah. So basically, if you read this book and you buy it all, and you live in Poland, you might say, "Man, I need to get my family out of here," right? Or if you say, "I'm not going to turn tail and run," just because things get tough, well, you can be Joseph in Egypt preparing for the lean times. So the thing that we have to do is missions, I think, is going to become, over the next 20 years, missionary work is going to become much more arduous and much more risky, right? So you're not, because of globalization, it was possible to send your church's youth group to Costa Rica to build a community center.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you got missional tourism, or
a couple of weeks,
a couple of weeks there, and then a couple days off in the city, and that's the fruit of globalization. Just like the early church spread because of the Roman roads, so a lot of missionary work, a lot of denominational work, a lot of evangelistic work is proceeding apace because of globalization. Well, a lot of organizations are going to have to retool. So if you want to be a missionary in certain parts of Africa, if you want to be a missionary to Eastern Europe, if you want to be a missionary in Russia, you need to be preparing for a failed state. Sort of, it's like, okay, I'm going to be a missionary to Somalia, to the warlords.
Sure, and having a right picture, that's going to make a difference.
Yeah, read the fine print, go in with your eyes open, or as the Lord said, count the cost. So this is basically a book that Christians should consider and take on board. I think it's serious enough thesis to weigh it as one of the options, and because no one can see the future perfectly, but when you count the cost, you don't have to predict what's going to happen. Counting the cost means that you budget for what could happen, right? And I think this series of books would be really effective in helping strategists, evangelistic strategists, church planters, whatnot, to consider the possibilities of what could be happening.
Thank you.
If you are enjoying these videos and would like to support this channel and the work of Canon Press, join up at Canon Plus. Just click the link, create an account, and have a look around.